Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm Karenann McDonald. It is another Friday. It's pretty exciting, isn't it? Why am I hearing myself twice? You know what? That's great. Just give me 1 second, guys, here. Let's try that again, shall we? Welcome to my Friday show. It's getting a little bit calm here. So it's nice to see you guys are here, and it's wonderful, and it's an exploding week. Oh my gosh. So we had 6 planets line up. Did you guys see that? That was a bit of an alignment. That was kind of cool. There was some weird shooting comet kind of unidentified light balls going all over everything too, right? So that was pretty cool. And then how many of you guys listened and did not go out for the actual eclipse? It's usually an ellipse, actually, as opposed to an eclipse. But I thought that was interesting. I was listening to, and all tribes have always said, do not go out. Do not go out because there's energies, there are things that can do attaching and the whole magnetics. And who cares if you lose a little bit of magnetics here and stuff for we're going to lose gravity for 7 seconds. We're all still here. We didn't float off to the, great outdoors and the great skies above. But anyway, we're still here. So one of the other things I wanted to let people know, and it's always been that, tribes have always said, don't do that. There are things that can do attachments, and that goes into the biofield. So anyway, I think that's really important. They'll even go so far to say is, stay in the basement, stay in a cave, get grounded, actually turn off your power. It makes sense. Have an alignment. If you can do that alignment, why have people putting things down at you? So that was very cool. A lot of people are going to notice some differences. If you listen to, how many of you guys know who La Quinta Columba is? Have you guys ever heard of La Quinta Columba? I have. Now, why are they famous to me? Because they're in Spain. That's great. They do live blood. That's even better. They have been exposing all the nanotechnology. And so La Quinta Columba, I was listening to him way back, 8 months ago. He came up with this. He says, do you know what? I think that this eclipse that's going to be here on the 13th is going to be something. What? They said it was going to be actually a triggering of people that had been injected. Okay, so those are something that, like I said, they consider it to be the first day of darkness. So La Quinta Columba was one of the first people here to start doing things with what you called live blood cell. And they were one of the first ones here to start coming out and talking about the dental anesthetic and the freezings having the graphene and all the nanochips in there. So if you've had a chance to take a look at it, they were pretty amazing. And I'm just going to, screen share here for a second because a lot of people, they just don't realize. And I'm you have to be aware of what's going on. It's absolutely amazing when you take a look at it because, there's so many things that, people are getting subjected to, right? And so one of the things that I like, because after doing that, I actually have some of the dental stuff here because it was given to me, what can we do just in case we have to go in and help some people and do a few things here and see what you can do because people are having dental issues, right? Freezing is freezing. There's lidocaine and there's only so many of us. I'm one. I've meditated. I've put clove oil on and peppermint and things like that. But one of the things right at the very, very beginning was some of the things that came out with this dental freezing. It was absolutely insane what they were coming up with, and when you started looking at, like I said, what Quinta Columba came up with, that was where a bunch of us said, you know what? We can actually go in here and we can take a look at this and see what we can do to help people. And so we did. We came up with some really innovative things. So let's just take a look at that for a second because I'm on a different tangent. But what else is new? I want to get this information out because I think it's really important for people to do that. So here, let's listen to La Quinta Columba here for a second because important. If you haven't seen the freezing, let's take a look at it. Here we go.
This is a video from Rafa Calvin La Quinta Columna showing you in a few minutes nanotechnology in dental anesthetics that has self-assembled into distinct nano microscale circuitry to serve as a digital interface in the Internet of Bodies with the cloud. People keep asking me whether this vaccine or that anesthetic contains the nanotechnology in question. The answer is that all vaccines and anesthetics contain self-assembling nanotechnology. Here is a list that is by no means exhaustive of medication and drinks foods containing self-assembling nanotechnology. All vaccines, dental anesthetics, very likely all of them, inhalers and nebulizer solutions used for treatments of asthma.
And vape stuff, you guys, and insulin and stuff. So there was a lot of stuff going on. So very, very important that we take a look at, we kind of realize what's going on because, you know, like I said, that was part of the thing they thought was going to happen yesterday. But I'm in the middle. It's a little bit cooler today. We had a little bit of rain. So I was thinking over what happened in like basically almost all of July, end of, June. We had like basically 2-3 weeks of just total drizzle. And then we went, of course, fires started going off in the, the Slocan Valley here. So we still have quite a few fires burning, but thank gosh, they're on the backside away from anything that's like populous. And then what did we have? We've got the stuff going underneath Washington. And then we had Kimberly, which is in the East Kootenay. So we have the East and the Central, and then the West and the Okanagan started going off. Well, how many people know about the Summerland and Peachland south of Kelowna in what you call the Siniak or Okanagan tribes or all sorts of things here? But the lower part of what people think of British Columbia was massively on fire. They actually evacuated out 20,000 people out of a small city. So they have been shutting that down. And I was talking to one of my friends. They were monitoring one of the motels and they were already getting evacuees in. They had just taken a bunch of people that had lost everything, their houses, everything. And they got to the motel and my girlfriend was laughing. She says, no big deal. We've been through this. An hour and a half later, she sent me a picture and she was at her house picking up her dog because the whole city had been evacuated. Again, in this case, because a lot of those fires are following along the transit systems, which by the way, if you haven't seen my Facebook, did you guys all see the bunker stuff I put down? Just in case it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So one of the things in here is we will take a look at that because that was mind-blowing. Like a lot of people have never seen it. They've hardly seen deep underground military tunnels. They haven't studied Tartaria. They haven't studied the Star Fort cities, the mud flood cities, any of that. So like I said, people have got very little background knowledge to this. So when you start looking at the amount of fires and floods and everything going, it's nuts. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few of those things because I've been aware of them for years, and I have seen a beam weapon. I have seen a light portal come down, not once, several times. So, I'm not a newbie at this. I've seen it quite a few times. And again, those are things that we need to be aware of. And this again happened, and this is within hours. So right now we're getting the ash and everything else from that. So that is absolutely insane, right? So when you start taking a look at what just happened here into the Kootenays, right? And we start looking at what this is off my Facebook group. If you're not there, join the other 11,000 people that just basically joined this last 2 months. Anyway, I think this is cute. Anyway, so, you take a look at it. When you see this, the only thing, of course, we've got a blue shed here, a blue roof that stayed, and the trees are totally fine. I mean, they're not fine. They're scorched. They look a little bit gray, but they're still standing. Why? Because they're connected to the spring water system. That should be your first hint in here. So one of the things in there, and again, a lot of people, are you aware? There are actually patents out. There are books that the military has said how they're going to use forest fires as a weapon. Get with the program. That's why these different things, getting alkaline, getting minerals and stuff like that. So it's not just for straight health and radiation and everything else that we'll talk about in a little bit, but also I have used that just like baking soda. Okay, so whether you use a 1/4 teaspoon or use some with the baking soda, it's a nice combination in here. What I wanted to show you is, oh my gosh, let's take a look at this frickin' fire here. Absolute chaos. I want you to also look at that, is that that's not the entire area. every time I've seen just about anything, except if it's like where the grid is and where they actually came off, is that they're making it look worse than it actually, was, or the, amount of hectares. And again, absolutely nothing. And then how do you have all of this stuff start within less than like 45 minutes, an hour? It doesn't do that. It just does not do that. So those are some of the things in here. So again, look at what this is. So when you look at the Okanagan, and if you guys don't know where the Okanagan, here's Kelowna, used to be famous for Bedrock City. It also used to be famous, right, for the Ogopogo, like you think the Loch Ness monster. So there's enough stuff going around. So all of a sudden we've got stuff in Summerland, we got then Peachland, and then this whole entire highway system was shut down. And then people were starting to see it coming in the back end of Kelowna. Ashes were coming over and then into the Penticton area. So all of this is really important to know this critical area here. And then you start looking at Bald Range and Riley Lake and Adams Creeks and stuff like that. Take a look up in here too. I just want to put into perspective, almost all of these areas happen to have reserves here, dams and reserves as well. So one of the things in here as well, take a look at that. So here we go. Tiny little thing. Next thing you know, boom, it's all over. And it's going in linear or grid patterns in here. There's something called a scorched earth policy. It's a military term that meant we're basically going to burn everything down so that the enemy cannot take it over. It's a peacekeeping directive that has been into place, as far as I know, since 2016. I heard it out of one of the military and then out of their commander-in-chief. This is something I want to bring to your attention. These are actually bunkers and stuff like that. And little bunkers and little tires and radar installations and stuff like that. They can tell you some of these things are decommissioned, and a lot of times they're actually not. Okay, these are fallout shelters. Did you know that? So guess who gets to get them? Anyway, so put it into perspective. They have just as many, if not more, down the States. But I'm just concentrating on this area right now, right? I want you to think where basically most of the fires are, but that's just another point of interest here. Okay, so if we go down below the border, again, where are those areas? And again, where are the things that are on fire, right? Look at the Spokane fires that are going off. It's just insane. Another area here. So again, here's another one. I'm not the only one that did this. The Canadian Prepper put this out like 3-4 years ago too. Over 2,000, I repeat, a map of 2,000 of Cold War era bunkers and radiation detection stations. Keynote, mostly decommissioned. Remember, if it's not shut off, it means it's just parked. It's in a stay. Okay, so let's put some thought towards this when you know what happens with tunnel systems and stuff like that. So I thought, well, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, this is my duck day. So anyway, I thought this was pretty wild in here. Oh, how are you? We got to say hi to the mystifying Marcus in the room, and Jen and Pinkerton's here, Jack. I stayed indoors during the eclipse and it wasn't even in my area. Again, you play it safe, right? Because the ground crew, and I'm going to talk about actually what's been going on, that we got gamma radiation. Hi, Karen. Thank you for sharing so much. I saw a military near Canmore, like going into the mountain. I have seen that too. I've actually seen doorways open up to where the Three Sisters are by Kananaskis. I have been out to other places as well, out to Cypress Hills in Elkridge down there, right below that base. If you guys know what Suffield is, CFB Suffield is a Canadian Air Force base, military, of also British and American. So it's a tri-base. And I have actually seen that myself. I've seen actually doorways and stuff open up, just hovering in the middle of nowhere. So it's like a portal opening up. And occasionally I've seen it, when you see those portals, it's almost like when you have camouflage and they do holographic. Occasionally, once in a while, you'll see them flip. So anyway, so that's one of the things that's really important that we take a look at, right? So on and on and on to exciting things and more stuff I wanted to talk about today. So one of the cool things is how many people know who Stuart Swerdlow is. Stuart is an author. He's got a site with himself and his wife, Janet, and it's called Expanding, right? Get your expansions, expanding horizons and stuff like that. So anyway, he was in Montauk. His uncle, if I remember, it was basically like second in charge of Russia way back when, with the KGB and everyone else. And so what happened is that he starts talking about all the different things and tunnel systems and Montauk. He was also involved with Max Spear, some of the original super soldiers that talked about Nelson and British Columbia and the Alberta and the Dums and all these different things here. They talked about cloning centers, actually in Alberta and British Columbia, by the way, like 10 years ago, 15. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So anyway, when you start looking at some of this, we go into here and we start looking at some of these ideas. And one of them here, if you haven't seen this one, this is another one of my favorite ones here. It's called the Winnipeg Wind Tunnel Sublines. In other words, there are so many dams and tunnels, you have no idea. So you can see the transits that go like Pincher Creek and all into here and Saskatchewan and Alberta and up through these bases. You can see BC's quite good. Then there's your Nelson base. And again, they connect into basically subtunnels as well that go out into the ocean. So as weird as it is, if you go down about 400 or 500 miles, you can have nuclear subs going underneath all of that. So guess what? They got a whole new world under there. Okay, so this is very interesting. And while we're taking a look here, as you can see this little circle here, and you see all the Great Lakes in Michigan and all that, and Windsor, Ontario. Did you guys know there were some quakes there? I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that Stuart was talking about, because mind-blowing stuff. So again, it's not always what you think. It's what you know, right? So these are some of the other things too that, put up here. And a lot of people go, I don't know there's a tunnel. I'm like, I actually knew people that were actually invented some of the technology that made these boring devices. I went to high school with them, for gosh sakes. They sometimes use it for mining, but they also use it subcontracted, right? And when you do a military contract, again, it's in there. I've known people have gone into these little mountains here, like here, and then show up like, in a different country or like across the, halfway across the states. Okay, you start seeing again these different kind of maps. This is acknowledged by them. When they're missing trillions and trillions of dollars, this is where it goes, right? And this is what they admit to. Can you imagine what they don't admit to? Right? Okay, so again, when people think they know what they know, and sometimes you're missing some of the maps, even this other one that's way down here, these black and white ones here, right? There again is Nelson, Edmonton, Cold Lake, okay? Just south of Saskatoon, there's one. Calgary's got one. They're all over the place up here. I don't know how people cannot know this, right? Okay, and you want to know why the Canadian ones are shut off? Because that's where most of this stuff is stored, by the way. The water, this is going to end up being a water war crime. Just you wait. If you haven't seen what's happened to Lake Powell, Lake Mead, and the Hoover Dam, they're within a couple feet, and already they're starting to shut down the grid. Can you imagine having all these waterways up here? And your water is now gone, this entire river system? These people are going to be without water. They're going to shut off the power, right? That's why we need to actually start moving towards the free energy, shut down all the dams, open up the dams, and get the ether like you got Ethernet instead of internet. We'll get the Ethernet and start being able to tap into that for free energy. So again, be very, very well aware of this. Like I said, this is already acknowledged by them. Okay. Like I said, you always worry what they don't acknowledge. That's more so. Unacknowledged projects. Anyway, so that's one of the things in here too. These things are being deployed against the people. All of these things are in here. They've got toxicologies. They've got patents. They've got clinical studies. I've read more things than I ever cared to do it. Right. And that's about the only happy thing that happened here is apparently now parents can sue, right? So they can opt-outs. You've got to have a little bit of like joy and hope here this week, right? As to what's been going down. So that was a positive thing. I must say, definitely, definitely positive. Okay. So one of the things in here, we're going to talk a little bit also, again, when you've had fires and floods, what happens to the environment? We start getting the nanotechnology, the inhalation particles. It's not just burning off like, basically lead poisoning. By the way, that's one of the biggest things that comes out of some of these fires, by the way. Graphene, all of, different things. Nitrates they've been doing, spraying glyphosate. If you don't think heavy metal poisoning like aluminum isn't bad enough with Alzheimer's and people wonder why they're all getting a little squirrely or can't remember things, that's partially why that is. But when you start going, I was blown. So some of the screens, and we'll go into that in a minute, what we're going to do for protection in here, I want you to see that a lot of the places, even up in these valleys, were 400 or 500. Basically, 300, anything around 300 is don't go out. Actually, ideal. Someone goes, well, what is it ideally? I said 0. 0. So when you go into here, and where I went into one of the different areas I was looking at Silver Creek, right before that, it was 2100. Okay. That means like, don't come up for air. Okay. So these are things that is really, really got to be important. Okay. So let's take a look at that. Let's just remember some of the things that we're, seeing going on. And so we need to get this all together because it's very, very important. So when you've got things like EMF and stuff like this coming at you, what are we going to do? Called Ghostbusters, let me tell you. So one of the things in here, let's talk about something. One is about getting silver blankets, copper blankets, or different fabrics that are lined out. And I think that is actually one of the most easiest things and one of the cheapest things that someone can do. So I put something up here. They said, what are we going to do? And it's no different. I don't fly in planes. I would never fly in a plane unless it was my own plane or a friend of mine. I knew it was going to get spiked or jacked up or something or shut on. But in here, you can actually get blankets. Okay. This is a great idea. You can also get a toque and stuff like that. You can actually get these fly wraps here. They're 40% pure silver. The woman's a genius, even if she looks like Barbie, right? Okay, the other thing is to get silver lined hats or copper. Again, on Amazon, Mission Darkness, just changed its name to Have, I think I just saw, to Lamb, all sorts of places. You can Google these. It's not rocket science. If you want to save the family, crown jewels and protect your little gonads and the, little things there in the scrotum and your little sperms and all that sort of fun stuff, women, and especially if women that are pregnant, you can get camisoles that are actually lined. So you can see the silver lining in here. It's lightweight, it's durable, and you're able to go in and start doing that. So again, something very, very simple. It's not rocket science, but you can certainly go in and start doing that. So if you would like to take a look at that, I would highly encourage you. So the next thing I like to always talk about is, of course, essential oils. We'll come back to the pH stuff, and we're going to go through herbs and oils that are really great for this, right? And Jan's making a note. Arsenic is coming up a lot in the genus. Not only is it coming up, I'm going to talk about the gamma radiation and why I want to talk about what Stuart Swerdlow said and my discussion with Tony Pantalleresco this week too. So in here, let's take a look at that little tidbit because I'm going to put some of these in, and I put about 10 links up here before. One of the sets, a lot of people go, and I will do this for children. I will do this a lot actually for men. Because if I say, I want you to go get these 10 oils at something, it's like, no. But some of these companies have actually put together, and this was actually, we couldn't find this in Canada for 3 years. It just came back online. It's actually an organic line. They may say stuff, but when I contacted the company, it's actually a therapeutic organic line. There you go. But because it's in bulk, guess what? There you've got 120 mils, basically almost like a quarter of a cup, in here, and you have got this for $20. Okay. If you can't get anything better than this, lavender, lemon, orange, peppermint. I just went to a friend of mine that just ordered this, right? And his house smells gorgeous. I just have to show him how to take the plastic lids off. So I spent 10 minutes taking all the lids off because there's a plastic cap. He opened it up and couldn't get it to go out because there's a solid plastic cap. So you have to take these little plastic caps off and then put the droppers in it. So anyway, that is something really handy, right? You can't get better deals than this. Like if you have something, and again, these are the kind of ones like throw them in your diffuser. Okay. Put them in your drinks, put them in your smoothies, put them on your feet, put them on your chest, wear them under underarms instead of like deodorant. Make some pills up, make some aromatherapy pills. Lots of stuff is here. One of the things I've noticed is, and I've been giving this recipe out for like ever, but one of the things I want you to take a look at is to get a sense of peace and calming. Because right now people are missing their sense of peace. They're missing any semblance of being calm as well. So this is something, my favorite one almost in the world is this. Okay, I have a creamsicle one. I have some other ones like a florist blend. I've got a Radiate Renew blend we'll talk a little bit about. But these are the type of things that also work for 5G, EMF, radiation, and they calm your brain down. I remember 30 years ago when I worked with Dr. Gary Young, They actually hooked up people's brains with little EEGs and had all the little brain sensors and wires coming out of their heads. Well, maybe not out of their heads, but on their hair, on the scalp. Anyway, so they were wired right up to do the EEGs. The minute they gave them this peace and calming and put it under their nose and they started smelling it for about a minute, their whole brain went into absolute relaxation. This is one of the few oils in the world because, as you can see, it's basically tangerine orange. So it smells primarily orangey. There's some ylang ylang to open up the heart, some patchouli to ground you, and of course, blue. This is why I don't use methylene blue. You have options called blue tansy or Moroccan, German, or Roman chamomile, which will look blue. Those are bluish things. So it's got a really nice scent. So if you're having focusing issues, children with focusing issues, I can't sleep, I need to relax, these are great things to start giving into people to wean them off their medications. Okay, first step there. So is that not simple and cute? Okay, Mountain Springs is another supplier out of Alberta. You can look up Nevessence. If you're a therapist, call them up, say, hey, I'm a therapist, what can you do for me? And you get wholesale. The other one is Key Aroma, and that's another great one that you can look at because they have got lots of stuff here. And this is the game changer for all of you, especially for radiation, okay? Especially for biofield healing here. So those of us that are in the synergy ideas and doing biofield, absolutely game changer. And this is one of the ones I'm going to show you, the Key Aroma. You know, you can get like a lot of these on Amazon.com, but this is a specific one only for Canada. Sorry, guys. It's one of the few times that you're going to have to like wait for this one. So this one is actually called here Key Aroma Shop. They are closed until September because it's going to look like it's sold out, but it's not. They're all on holidays till September. So in here, these are amazing oils. I want you to see here. I can get a Rose Absolute. I can get Jasmine for those people stressed out, Frangipani, Helichrysum, things like that. And as you can see, most of the prices here are under $10, $5, $10. Again, therapeutic levels. You pick up, do you want 5 mils, 10 mils, whatever you want. This is another one that will be a game changer for you for the radiation. And again, this type of stuff coming down. You've got to be able to penetrate all levels of the biofield. And that's one of the few things in there. So we got some questions here. We're just going to see. It's time travel art time. Interesting. I was remembering, I've actually talked with Douglas Dietrich, saying something in the past about Max Spears being groomed by General Michael Aquino. Yes, absolutely. That was in there. There was some stuff tied to Stuart Swerdlow as well. He was around with Max Spears in the last 6 months too. Talking about Phil Schneider. I know that's tragic, right? You know, the Dulce and the exposures and stuff like that. Question from Jen. Karen, are tunnels in Canada being cleared out? Yes. And I can tell you that, not because I've been there, but from a direct thing I've been told by people that are in the forces directly. Arsenic is coming up on your Genius Biofeedback. Always great to do that. And Time Travel Art says you put me on the game about oils way back and you've been using it ever since. That is the game changer. So one of the things I had actually at Nevessence, I had Tony Nevis make for me because I wanted to create if I said, I want a radiation blend, I want a 5G blend, everyone's going to go, right? It's not something they want to go out too public with, but I had him make one. It's called Radiate and Renew. So Radiate and Renew was to deal with the, radiation and help over it, right? And so one of the things we did is it had celery seed. And are you listening carefully? Carrot essential oil. So I gave you the suppliers that if you wanted to get carrot essential oil, carrot seed, that is a huge game changer. So you can put your lavender in and your spruce and your pine and your cedarwood, and those are all great, which they are. But there's nothing like having a little eucalyptus. But you mix that with some carrot seed oil, that's one of the keys for radiation. So I wanted you to be very, very aware of that because these are suppliers, you can go get it. So one of the things is we want to talk about is how do we help ourselves? How do we help others? And as you can see, if you've been on my Facebook, I'm playing with logos. I've been sitting on this thing for like 30 years, but I'm doing it now. So one of the things in here is to go in and we're going to look at what I call the calm technique. If you know, it's my initials. But anyway, karenann, Lusick, McDonald bits, having the knowledge, getting yourself aligned, listening and inner listening, and being able to manifest. That is going to be the key. Okay. So it's not about throwing protocols and techniques and everything else. It's experiential. You have to have the experience, you have to have the journey, and you have to be able to communicate and put that stuff that you learned into, not even practice, into your life. You got to start living like this. This is that simple right now. So one of the other things too, you never know where this stuff is going to be affecting. It's absolutely just nuts what's been going on. Now, one of the other things I'm just going to touch on as well here is that a lot of people have been stressed out. Okay. They're having real mental fog. So we're going to talk about the essential oils. We're going to talk about some other game changers in here, especially these are companies up here, but they run on the international front. So one of the ones here, this actually was in Saskatoon. I actually sent a client of mine down to Dad's Nutrition in Saskatoon. And that's the advantage of being on the road for so many years, right? You get to know every health store and who the owners are. So I called them up and I said, hi, how are you? I'm not here, but I want to send some clients in. And Empower Plus is normally about $80. So if you're in the Saskatoon area, you might want to go down there for a week. It's going to be $49.99. I want you to see how important these things are here. Okay, let's take a look. If you don't know the True Hope story, I would suggest you go to truehope.com and read their story. It's mind-blowing. And they've been friends of mine for like 30 years too. Anyway, not only do you have vitamins in here and magnesium, everything, you can see the copper, everything that people are missing. And they started mixing it again with grapeseed extract, which is great for parasites. There's your boron and your borax. There is your germanium, and there's some ginkgo leaf and a few other things in here. It's a chelated version. It's a little bit different. So one of the things, and some amino acids, but one of the things that was just mind-blowing is that people that were misdiagnosed with bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, and all sorts of stupid things, after a week of this, they were able to start weaning off their meds. They didn't have any symptoms. The minute they came off of it, it would present because, again, you still have to go in and do the cleaning. It's one thing to have something that's a supplement that's mineral and vitamin based that can take someone off. But as you can see, most of this is in a chelated form. It's a whole different ballgame. So these are some of the things in here I've been looking at. And if you are missing minerals and vitamins and the amino acids, all based on plants, what happened, like I said, is that this was actually had really advanced chelation technology. And a lot of people, they just like, that's it. No more prescriptions. They eventually wean themselves off. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to, take a look at, the cellular nutrition. If you think you have brain fog or something like this, it's worth trying one of these for a month. Okay. They've also come in powder form, and they come in like electrolyte sticks as well. If you've got children, because I've got a bunch of children now, and teenagers and preteens, we've got to get these children on something here. And this is one of the things that's a great substitute instead of going on your Riddle and all the rest of the crap. So do take a look at this. This is a really, really powerful company. They have stuff for bones. They have stuff if you're having gut issues, because a lot of people with the genetics, there's a lot of gut issues, starting to happen here. So those are some of the things that I thought might be really cool for you if you haven't taken a look at that. Okay, so that's the Empower Plus thing. I'm going to go into a little bit of fun stuff here, and I'm going to give also a shout out as well to Reese. And we're going to talk about Reese Thomas Institute. So those people that like to do with crystal bowls, remember, we're crystalline. We're not made out of, metals like tuning forks. Okay. But crystal bowls are one of the few things. And I think probably the best teacher I've ever come across internationally in all these years is actually Reese Thomas Institute. So do take a look at that. They'll be having some cool things coming in. One of the things when I assess people through biofeedback, and if you haven't had a free complimentary session with me for 15, 20 minutes, give me a call, because I'm happy to do that. I had one girl today saying, oh, I can't do it. People get a charge and yeah. And I'm broke and I have this and I have Lyme's. And you know what? I said, I just told you I was going to do it for free. And they're still going on for the next pair of sentences about how broke they are. I said, you just can't get through to people. You can drop things in here. But one of the things that, might be interesting if you want to take a look at, and this is the reason why, when I went into biofeedback, and Jen's in the room, she can testify to this. and or don't testify. Bear your oath is what we do, actually. One of the things you're going to see here on that is that when you start looking at the wellness technology here, it's not just about putting your voice in. The voice comes in and it actually can give us information. The information is different on every therapist's device because I get to make some of it. So you can do the voice scan and you can basically add it in with other therapies. But let me tell you, I can go in here and it will tell me which one of the 500 essential oils I have in my devices is the best one or combinations of best ones for you. No different than I have a homeopathic version, I have a Bach flower version, and I have different suppliers. I might have Isogenics in there. I might have Young Living. I might have doTERRA. I might have Key Aroma. I might have Eden's Gardens and all the above. Okay, and blends that I make are in here. So this is the advantage of going in here and using biofeedback. Because biofeedback, think, oh, it's just about calming your brain or something like that, or you're running an EEG. You're not running it with sensors. You're actually checking the stress and the emotional levels, and any basically test that the hospital can run, so can we on an energetic level. So very, very important. Coming back to getting people calm and giving them information that we need. So in here, let's talk a little bit about the crap going around the world here. Oh, man, if it's not one thing, it's another. So one of the things in here, oh, you think I had libraries? I got 4,000 now. I just probably made another 20 this month. Anyway, I have libraries, let me tell you, for making that. So one of the things in here, let's take a look at what we have. And of course, everyone, I put something up. Can you imagine I put one little Facebook thing up and I just looked and it's close to 50,000 people have already looked at it. One of the things too is what's called NextRad. Okay, we start looking at this, and Tony Pantalarsko, a lot of us use this chart, right? Sky Watchers are using it, preppers are using it, Dutch things, geoengineering, all those guys are using this thing. In here, and of course, they don't want you really to see too much in that. Again, the up doors where they're all hiding up here, by the way. So as things get cleaned out there, they're pushing them up north. In here, these are your next generation. They're almost like, to me, when you look at it, it's like still a form of radiation. They go, oh, these are just radar installations. No, they're connecting and they're doing electrical magnetics. They're like almost, to me, like mini harps. You might as well have a nuclear explosion go off. These things are micro pulsing here, and it's getting worse. You can actually see it, and then you'll see people have headaches. And now we've had one, I was just listening to Michael Bradbury, who's known as Mr. MB333. I always put his stuff up a couple times a week because what you're seeing in here is some of this stuff has been sitting here to the point it gets dark brown and dark whatever, and you can see the color, the lexicon at the bottom. But when it starts going into this reddish color, it's like people are getting headaches, they're getting sick, they can't move, and it's been sitting over this area right where the green area is now. It's actually been gone down. It's almost like a brown black here already. And so these people are really getting targeted here in those areas. And again, it's going to affect, and stimulate things, all sorts of things. So that's one of it. One of the things I talked about here in the next rad here, right? Why am I saying this? Because this is stuff you need to know. There's things like climate viewers, and you can see that, we're monitoring stuff all over. Again, let it show that, they don't want you knowing what's going up in the great, parallel up here. So anyway, a lot of this stuff, a lot of us have got individual even readers. And one of the things that just came up all of a sudden is we are finding gamma radiation. And that's one of the things in here. So Mark goes, SOS. Ah! Karen, do you believe what Stuart is saying? Do I believe it? I know he's right because I've got monitors here. Okay. I'm not the only one that's got a monitor in my valley. Two of us had gamma radiation showing up within 24, 48 hours of each other. I don't always check it all the time. And at one time I used to keep it on all the time, and it was just it gets too depressing if I hear it beeping all the time. So I already know what's going on. It's just what degree of whatever. At one point where something was 100, now it's at 1,000. It's going up. It should be 0. But that gamma radiation is pretty detrimental. Okay. And that's one of the things in trying to educate people what is going on with the gamma radiation. And as I said, if you're in an area here that's getting targeted, and remember, I just showed you one of those areas there. So again, it fluxes, and different cities get different things at different times. And again, when I talked about these things, let's say being over a certain city or area, province, or location, here's the one I just put up with Michael, which he showed up a couple hours ago, right? Here it is again. It's been sitting there for 3 days, not a couple minutes, not an hour or two spiking, or 3-4 hours, 3 days solid. Okay, so now you're going to see changes in the environment, the water, and all the wildlife, right? A lot of people are noticing, and they're talking to me about these issues of having problems with their animals. They don't want to go out and drink. They're acting different. People are, not seeing maybe butterflies, or not seeing, their birds come, or the robins. So there's changes as well in the environment if you take a look at it. Okay. One of the things I want you to take a listen to, because I love Marcus Rothkrantz, and here he is. Thank you, Marcus. Take it away. If you're not on the healthy life, you should be. Okay. And one of the things in here is he's got a thing called Marcus Products. In here, there's a whole section, and it's called free downloads, people. Okay. So he gives you a free book. I've been giving this out for just about 25 years because I just absolutely love it. But let's take a listen to Marcus here on the radiation, because it's really, really important. Of course, now he's disappeared, so I have to find him. There he is. He's back. Let's listen to Marcus for a minute.
In beautiful, shining life. I think I have the perfect people for this video. One was a little girl when Chernobyl exploded, and she got really sick, and everybody around her got cancer, and she learned how to heal herself. The other one is a nuclear test pilot who actually flew through the mushroom cloud of an atomic bomb, and he learned how to heal himself. Wait till you see what they have to say. And the third person is me. I live in Las Vegas, where they did 800 nuclear tests for over 50 years. People used to sit on the roofs of the casinos and sip champagne as they watched the mushroom clouds go up in the distance. I am much healthier now than I was when I got here 14 years ago. If you live in fear, then you have to live by some basic rules. And that's the way nature intended. Once you master that, there's a whole nother level of living, and we'll get to that in a few videos. But right now, let's get to the basics. How do you survive radiation in this world? There are people still alive 60 years later after the Hiroshima bomb blast. Why? What did they do to survive? Well, these two people in this video are going to tell you. Do I know what I'm talking about? There's a few things about me that some of you don't know yet. I was flown to a secret military base down in California for the WMD, that's Weapons of Mass Destruction First Responders. These are the guys that come in when there's a chemical, biological, or nuclear attack with special vehicle and hazmat suits. These are not military guys that kill people. These are guys that help determine survivability. It was kind of cool. It was just like in the movies. They picked me up in these black vehicles with blacked out windows, and they said things like, "We have the package." That was me. Anyway, my job was to be special health consultant, to teach them about health. Let the people in this video inspire you to a new way of living.
So
I was exposed to radiation in Chernobyl
one of the
when I
best
was a
things
child,
ever.
and I've seen all my family basically be in touch with.
So one of the things in here, it's important to learn from the people that know some of this stuff. So I've put things in here because I want you to listen. Okay, there are things that happen in Chernobyl, Fukushima. And I had a whole thing today, and people start saying, well, you need to go and eat all these animals and become a carnivore. No, actually, you don't, because what we have been able to show, besides through the China study and what Marcus has been talking about, and I also put on the Kirlian photography, the difference between what raw food is, what cooked food is, what plant food is, what fruits are, and what also vegetables are. All different frequencies, different biofields, and different auras, and different assimilation. The people that Marcus will tell you that beat that, and there is a couple, actually speaking of Stuart Swerdlow, something that was called the RADIATE couple many, many years ago. And they basically went into raw foods, super high-end superfoods and herbs that were in the Siberian taiga and in near Chernobyl and in Ukraine, Russia and the Tartarian areas. And they did a lot of shaga stuff. I will tell you, shaga is going to be one of those game changers in here. Because one of the things, too, is that we're going to start seeing how this is. Because the higher the vibration you are, and you're in touch with more higher vibration things off the earth, then this will not affect you as much. And then hopefully a lot of the stuff, even gamma radiation, is very, very different, because gamma, you will find, is one of the things that passes right through you, just like a knife through butter. A lot of people don't realize a lot of them come into different parts of the biofield. It's coming here and it stops there because you have an energy like a metallic bubble, right? You've got a shield. And if you don't have all your minerals inside, you will not have your entire biofield on the outside either, despite what people think. So one of the things too is you want to do things that are going to produce you, just like biofield, or we're talking when we talk about piloerection or mind is matter. You're trying to stimulate that nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and also your stem cells. So this is very, very, very important in here, that when we start talking about that, because that's how some of the things we need to take a look at. Because like I said, people just for the most part don't know. It's not that often that you will see that. So like I said, do I always have faith in what I'm reading on these particular, instrumentations or graphs? And the question is, or the answer to that will be no and hell no. Because I've actually been with people that were watching some of these things live, and I've watched what they put to the public. But in here, you have a great thing. And part of us that have those radiation detectors, like I talked to you about, like mine's called a GMC GQ. Mine's a Russian one, but you can get them on Amazon. You can get detectors for $50, $60. You can get them for $100. You can get them for $200. But as long as you've got a tubular that can, read it, there you are. So again, this is when people go, what the hell is NEXRAD? It's the National Centers for Environmental Information, basically. That's what we're doing. You can go into the radar, you can check off whatever level you want, update it, go see how far you want to go up, right? Okay, but this stuff is going on, and we have our own set of readers, so all of us even talk to each other, and you can actually tap into any reader. Or let's say if I'm looking for something that's close to maybe where I live, I have to go into one of these satellites here or NORAD and see if you get it. You got to remember, a lot of this stuff, okay, they have a radius as well. So those are some of the other things that you might want to take a look at. Now, one of the things that I thought was just mind-blowing, and actually it was so mind-blowing, I think I'm going to have you guys listen to it with me here for a few minutes, because, I mean, a lot of people just are not aware of some of the different things that Stuart says. And again, you don't have to like Nino. You don't have to like Nino's Corner. Hell, you don't even have to like Stuart if that's where you're at. What I want you to listen to is the importance of pole shift and gamma radiation. This is not fear porn. We're actually noting how far the poles are separating and moving. Like he said, we've got, and I know that, Yellowstone is going off. The Cascadia is going off. There was one out in the ocean that just blew. And by the way, we have another one. They're going like every day they're starting to go off Vancouver Island. It's constantly shaking in here. And so one of the things that, we want to take a look at in here is what is Stuart's background. Okay. And one of the things in here, even if you listen to the first and you just like to skim stuff, you can just go to the first probably 15 minutes. And we're going to take a listen to this because I think it's that important, on that. If you're not aware of some of these people, that's fine, but these are people I have known, contacted, been on Facebook with for some of these people 10, 15, 20 years. They've been little whistleblowers within their thing, but they're getting out into mainstream.
I build the life of my dreams working 4 hours a day.
Media and stuff like that. So one of the things in here, once you start listening to what he's got to say, it's pretty mind-blowing, and like I said, they were connected, and he used the word, I got briefed. I got briefed. So we're going to take a listen to him for just a second here and see what Stuart has to say, because I want you to go back and take a look at it. It was that important. I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't that important when I start hearing about gamma radiation. Okay? And that's why I can verify it, because I have it here. Let's take a look.
I'm going to tell you something. A couple of things going on. First of all, my listeners know, and maybe yours do from being on your show, for several years now, I've been saying that the gamma rays that are bombarding the Earth are causing the magma to rise to the surface, melt the rock, make the tectonic plates slip. And that's what's going on. Okay, so it is a natural event that is occurring across the Earth. However, there are EMP weapons that are being used by, let's say, nefarious governments that are pushing it over the edge. So in effect, it is a natural event with an unnatural enhancement.
So in other words, they're escalating it. They're trying to pick up the event to happen sooner.
Yes, but here's what happens. Once that process begins and these tectonic plates start slipping, they affect each other. So there's no longer a need for EMP or artificial electromagnetic pulses to push it because it's naturally now slipping. So what I was told was there's a convergence going on the West Coast between the San Andreas Fault, the Juan de Fuca Fault, and there's another fault in the Mojave that is helping slip the San Andreas Fault. And I was told that within 3 to 6 months, there's going to be a gigantic quake, especially in the southern part of California, but there will be effects across the entire West Coast from Mexico to British Columbia, including volcanic eruptions and so on. And it's going to be quite devastating. It'll be well over a 7, possibly an 8 or even more. There will be complete devastation. The American government is not capable of helping so many millions of people simultaneously. So I warned people a long time ago to get the heck out of the West Coast. If you wait till it happens, you're not leaving. You're going to leave, but not the way you want to leave.
So in other words, your message today is leave the West Coast now.
At the risk of making, a public catastrophe of billions of people leaving going east, let me tell you something. You need to at least get away from the San Andreas fault line. You need to get east of the San Gabriels, at least that. And if you live in the Pacific Northwest, and it could be at any moment when that's happening, there's already quakes occurring off the coast of Vancouver Island almost on a daily basis at this point, and they're getting bigger. Look at Yellowstone. Yeah, if you look at the USGS.gov maps, Yellowstone is quaking pretty much on a daily basis. The geysers are going off in crazy directions. The ground is heating up, and there's a Maine coon kitten here, which is the size of a panther. We got to put her down, or she kills me. Anyway, and so not only that, it's also affecting the St. Lawrence Seaway fault line that leads into the New Madrid fault line here in the Midwest. And that's been going off on a daily basis. This past week, last month, we had an earthquake underneath Lake Michigan. Now they're saying, well, we don't understand what's going on in Lake Michigan because no fault line there. But I told people months ago that they have discovered gigantic holes at the bottom of Lake Michigan, literally hundreds of them, not mapped, and crevasses across the bottom of a lake, never mapped or investigated. And I was told by a physicist who worked in, I will say, a laboratory in New Mexico, I'm not going to identify it, and they said that these were actually tubular magma vents from Yellowstone that reach all the way across to the Great Lakes. Yes.
So those are some of the things that I think people need to really be aware of, right? A lot of people are just, you need to be aware, okay? If you haven't heard about what the pole shift is, that's called the future map. That's what the government and the Navy are projecting. This is not like, the 100th monkey. We're going to put it into everyone's thing like MK Ultra. This is actually being documented, okay? And if you're in that area, especially in this Seattle, everyone has said you need to be out 400 miles at least away. One of the problems being with lower British Columbia and in the Washington area is you've got 7 and we've got 2 more up here. You've now got 9 volcanoes and they're starting to spill ash. So it's like Mount Hood, Mount Rainier. I've done lots of shows with that with Dr. Rich and Alan Miller, on that. We're not the only ones saying it. One of the things even on Marfugo TV, they were talking, when that thing goes and they think it's going to be an 8 or 9, once that rolls, it's going to move the next plate to the next plate to the next plate. And what they said, if this is you standing here and you're just having little quakes right now. But what they're talking about, when that one goes off, the whole entire plate is going to shift. You were standing here, you're going to be 50 feet over. Okay. You're going to be basically the whole thing. You're going to be actually traversing basically the entire thing of most people's property lines. That's a lot. Okay. So think about this. You're not just shaking and moving, or things are going in sinkholes. You're literally the earth is going to be moving at that point. So this is one of the things in here. The other thing too, if you're not aware of it, and someone's asking in the chat room, you're asking about what about is the landmass by Florida? The same thing would stand on basically within 3 to 4 hours of any coastline. So there is something called zeta tox. And again, going back to the, seeing as you guys are asking that, I'll put it up for you. It's called the future shift. And there's a thing called basically zeta tox. So the future maps, or what's called the Navy, or whatever what you want to call it, right? These are pole shift maps. Anyone can do it, or Michael Scallion's maps. So if you actually look at, depending where you are in Florida, not necessarily a safe place either. Okay. So I myself would never be anywhere near there. You want to be actually close to a mountainous thing. You can have floods, you can have floods and all sorts of stuff going off here. One of the things as well, let's take a look here. So if you take any one of these, and there's scallion maps, there's whatever, like you can see, everyone's scallions can be bigger or larger. But if you see different parts here of Florida, you don't see parts of Florida anymore. Almost any of the maps that have projected this over the years, a large part of it is gone. Okay. So divide that up. It's not necessarily the prettiest picture. What you're looking at for the North American world map in here, and we'll just concentrate on this for a bit. These are basically what's going to happen to the waterways. Okay. And this is why they talked about, and you can see what's been going on with the Mississippi, Missouri. That is why it's so critical right now. Or what happened in the Carolinas and Tennessee, right? Or where did the waterways get contaminated in Ohio, right? East Palestine and over at Connors with all these different things floating around. It's affecting the waterways and the systems. Okay. So you can take a look at it. And what you want to have is up location, 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 especially here. We know this is happening. You know, I've had people that are in Navy intelligence call me themselves, right? Last month, make sure you've got your ham radio. Make sure you've got a, radio walkie-talkie, because you won't be able to talk on anything else. Not signal, not anything. They're not going to give it to the public. Okay. And I will tell you from what I know, basically 3 years ago, as they knew this kind of stuff was coming in, is that basically military and stuff like that moved. See the perimeters here? They moved their major stuff inwards inland. So they've been relocating stuff. That's why a lot of people have been seeing convoys lately. So there you go. That's a special monitoring thing. They call it the Constitution, but there's a reason why they do that. So I don't know if that answers your question about Florida. The other one you can look up too, if you find it, it's called Zeta Tox, and it's called Safe Zones Pull Shift, usually Bing or something like that. You can take a look at that if you want to find that. You'll be able to track them down. They actually have got videos for that. So if you go to the Zeta Talk and the pull shift stuff, there's actually quite a bit in here. I actually might put this one up again. Like I said, people have been preparing this for like a decade. Like we know, it's just a matter of when, right? So once you start getting some of this going, take a look at what's going on. Actually, we'll do it now. There's pull flips, there's pull reversals, different things too. So all these things are being tracked right now. Everyone's tracking them. I'm not the only one. Plus getting information sharing, where it's going. Waters are being drained. Entire lakes are gone. If you haven't looked at the Lake Powell, Lake Mead, water systems. Okay, so things are already shifting. They're draining. They don't disappear. Okay, so one of the things in here, watching the changes in the sun. Get a little compass from the dollar store and see what's going on here. Okay, so as the poles start flipping in here and changing, even just a little bit, if you can imagine what can happen. Now, this is what they're mapping. You're going to start noticing wobbles, right? And that's what they think we're starting to get into. So they're going to tell you what's going on week by week. So if that's something in there, like I said, consider it prophecy, consider it revelations, call it whatever you want. Okay, but they're giving some information about what's going on. And that's what Stuart was saying, is that the mantle and the cores and the magma are now heating up and they're starting to move here. And so once you get the plate shifting, right, they talk about the St. Lawrence. Look what it says here. This is stuff I was looking at 15 years ago. When the St. Lawrence Seaway starts ripping and starts moving north, what did they just notice here in the last couple of weeks? This particular thing they were talking about in 2012. There's Florida. For what they tell you not to be there. Does anyone know there's also issues with the 3 gorgeous dams out this way now going in China? Notice that one this week too. Did you know they've noticed more islands and stuff showing up in the middle of nowhere out here? Oops. So again, this is going to affect worldwide. The Gulfs, the Bays, the Panamas here, the Caribbean. Okay, and then you start looking at the Ring of Fire and start looking at where the plates are pushing to, and up in here, this Juan de Fuca and the Cascadia subduction. If you go down here to about the 3rd arrow here, just in basically kind of Northern California and the Oregon area, there's actually volcanoes going out. So they've been watching this one at the Crescent City. That's another one that they're watching for. So like I said, you can take it, you can leave it, but this is back basically what they're saying they've noticed is starting to happen here. Okay, some more stuff happening around Greenland this too. Okay, so they are actually mapping this day by day. You can look at stuff there. So as I said, this is not about fear porn. This is about get people's heads out of the sand here. So Jen's got a question here. What do you think about the Calgary location? You're right at the base of the Rockies. I'd say to be in them. Calgary would not be safe. You got trajectory. You're roughly about 4,500 feet up, which is not bad. But you also in Calgary have a multiple base, and you've got a 26th floor facility of a dome there. So that's why I'm not there. So know where your Navy entrances are in McLeod and all sorts of stuff. Okay. There is why there are things going on in Edmonton. There are why things are going in Olds and all sorts of places, right? So look where those AI data centers and stuff are. You know, all this is tying into that as well. So anyway, that was one of the things. So now let's get into some of the other things that we really wanted to, you know, talk a little bit about here is let's get into excitement. Let's get into what you can do. So I'm going to leave this book with people. I've put it in here into your, into the chat room. It is actually called the Essential Oil Desk Reference. Okay. And this Essential Oil Desk Reference is really amazing. It's got so many different things for you. So I would like you guys to take a look at this because there's a whole bunch of stuff for whether it's radiation, It's for any kind of conditions and ailments. This should be a book that you guys are all basically downloading. Okay. And the same thing, if you think about radiation, and I'll go through the gamma stuff here in a minute, very, very important. So do take a look at this. This to me is a lifesaver. If you don't buy it, then get this down here. And if you have any questions, I'm going to talk for a few minutes and then I'm going to come back. If you got a burning question or want to know something, go take a look at it. Here's the essential desk reference. There's like 8 and 9 out right now, but this one's on a PDF and it's a full color one, which I like color stuff. Okay. Anyway, in here. So there's a whole section here on how to use oils, what special needs are. There's things to do with radiation as well. Okay. So if you take a look at some of these, have fun. Okay. So anything you wanted to know about plants, and I want you to think of it as not aromatherapy. It just drives me nuts. These are basically concentrated plant tinctures. So let me say that again, super concentrated biofield, bioenergetic, concentrated tinctures. These tinctures, again, are compatible with us, which is why they go through the skin, right? Think about it. Your blood doesn't leak out, but the oils go in. Okay, so you can protect your home. And these are the things, like I said, you want to have things like lavender, carrot seed oil, all the different trees, everything in here. So anything you need, and even just detoxing and cleansing and questions about alkalinity and questions about whatever you want, environmental protection. Okay, they're all in here. Okay, so you can flip to any different section that you want in here, and there's something for everyone in here. Okay, lots of stuff. And there are many, many different charts in here, which I love charts, right? Enzymes. There's a whole thing on how to make meals, how to make foods, healthy eating, beet salads. Let's go to my favorite section, environmental protection. So again, we are getting hit with forms of radiation from different types of ionizing and non-ionizing. I remember when Sergeant Broussard went and made a chart, there must have been like 30 different types of radiation on it. Do. This decays, this doesn't. This goes through, this doesn't. This goes right through. Be aware. One of the things they worried about was gamma radiation and UV, A, B, and C coming on the planet. One of the things in here is to make sure you protect it. This is not just about a bomb going off and you need thyroid. And again, you don't start giving iodine to people that have thyroid issues. Okay. So there are things, that's why we have biofeedbacks, or get them checked. Whether you want to do hair analysis or genus or biofeedback or some radionic device, those are available as well. Okay. Because usually what we're going to do is we're going to look for some of the causes rather than just giving you some supplement like a naturopath or a doctor giving you a prescription. So one of the things that's very, very key in all of this is having proper bowel flora, having things like probiotics, prebiotics, stuff like that. You need to have the gut working, because part of this thing, your whole shielding, your endo shields, all of this are really, really important, because you're getting things like cell phones, you're getting computers, you're getting electrical, and there's other potential issues as well, especially with cell phones, on here. So those are one of the things that we found that, as Marcus was talking about, when we saw things, let's say like March 11th, 2011, right, from nuclear stuff, what we found is that people started using alkaline water, right? Not everyone can take baking soda, right? So that's why we got to use alkaline foods like alfalfa that's plus 33 and not coffee that's minus 25, right? When your blood's got to stay, it's, in urine at 7.5. Okay, so a lot of those things are in here. They're telling you what's within there that helps with the ATP and helps build up the immune system. Okay, so one of the things is also a lot of the melaleucas, the tea trees, the eucalyptuses, all those things in here. Lemon, lime, oranges, right? Making sure you have that, making sure you have food, making sure you have dehydrated food, making sure you have sprouts. All those things are really important, and having a water source, knowing where your spring waters are. So those to me are probably the most important things that you guys could be doing right now. Okay. And so we want to get that. You'll see here, I've also got like a waterless essential oil diffusers, because you know what? We had smoke here. I've got air purifiers here. I've got wearable air purifiers we've been wearing, right? Blowing air. So that, and you're having, as we talked about, like you said, aluminum, we're having particles and arsenic and everything else coming down. This is keeping this tiny airspace cleaned and blowing it off constantly. The other thing in here that I found really important was to have a waterless air diffuser. So you can take your essential oils directly in there, or what you can do is actually, it blows the oil in itself. Okay. So I'm not putting it in a bunch of water and putting 2 drops thinking I'm going to do a lot. Medically, you have a waterless one, and that makes all the difference in the world. And I keep it here and I keep it blowing because essential oils change the molecular chemistry of the air, by the way. They're a natural chelator. So again, different things, having those baths, having the Epsom salts and baking soda and borax, and throw a couple herbal tea bags in. This whole idea of like putting a whole bunch of alfalfa in is ridiculous. Just get a couple herbal tea bags. You can do that too. So those are some of the most natural things that we wanted to. And again, there are herbs and plants that are natural for radiation. Okay. And it's the same thing I used to do with people that would come to me that went for chemo and radiation, right? These are the same type of things that are helpful. So if you don't know what they are, let's take a look. Do a Google search because it's all there, right? It's not rocket science. So one of the things in here, and one of the best things will be chaga. We're going to go into that before we finish off today. So one of the things in here, let's take a look. Plants that absorb radiation. Oh my gosh, look at that. Can you see that? So we've got a snake plant. You got a peace lily. You got a rubber plant and a cactus. Pretty cool, right? These are all different plants that can help, or organic plants that help with radiation. The other thing we're going to talk about is actually chaga mushroom. Best thing ever. Okay. So there is one of the best books ever, and it's actually from David Wolf. We'll go into that in a minute. This is a birch tree. This is what happens. It's basically the minerals and the vitamins growing out. So this is not like your button mushrooms that you eat and like, that type of thing. What you're talking about is that these are used, and you can crush them up. You can chop them up. You can put them in water, and the water will turn black with all the minerals. It's very gin. And then one of the things as well, it's one of the highest things in antioxidants. You can buy it in powder. You're buying it in tinctures, right? It's absolutely amazing. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of people are getting reishi, chaga, turkey tail, lion's mane, all sorts of stuff. So one of the best ones in here, there is a book by David Wolf, a friend of mine, an acquaintance, is when you get into that, one of the most important books, and he does tinctures and stuff, it's one of the few things known to fight cancer, EMFs, and radiation. And that's what Mark was talking about, is what were they doing in Chernobyl? What were they doing with the plants and the trees in Asia and Fukushima? Guess what they used in Japan and stuff? Reishi mushroom. Okay, so these are some of those mushrooms that are really, really powerful. Okay, they're great for diabetes, cancer, whatever you think, depression. This is a great substitute as well instead of drinking coffee. So this is some of the things I want you to look at. And you can definitely Google if you want the chaga and the reishi and stuff like that, or listen to a couple of videos when David Wolf has talked about what is going on with the chaga. Okay, so there is lots of videos that he's got out there. Take a look. These are absolutely brilliant. This one I really recommend from 10 years ago. It's why the chaga is considered the king of medicinal mushrooms. And you can see all the PowerPoints here. Okay, this is something that I think is really, really important. Okay, so I kind of want to leave it there for today. I think that's a lot. You want to keep, like I said, the vibration up. These are the high vibrational foods. People just don't realize that it's part of the vibration is you are what you not necessarily eat. It's what you absorb. And that becomes one of the bigger factors here. And one of the other things as well, just in listening to a few different people, one of them was Sabrina Wallace. And I don't necessarily listen to all of them every day. I tend to have a gravitation that I pick up what I think I need to be listened to. And that was one of them. So one of the things we'll put into the chat room is look up your chaga mushrooms with David Wolf. And one of the things we're going to listen to is actually Sabrina Wallace, just for a couple minutes here, because she starts actually talking about the fires and the floods and everything else here. and how these are going to be detonated, because I'm going to go into something that I found, and I know people that wrote the article. And I'm going into this in a minute. But let's just take a listen to actually Sabrina Wallace here for a second. It's listed under her YouTube, but you never know she's talking about it till you listen to her. Let's do that.
Was melted down, cars were melted down, but plastic lawn chairs survived. So people started asking questions, knowing that we have directed energy weapons and something called microwave plasma technology. Anybody want to talk about that? No? Okay. All right. Well, we need to, unfortunately, because for myself, I've been dealing with electrical engineers and radio frequency engineers for a while now that say to me, Sabrina, 2.4 gigahertz or 5 and 6G, there ain't no way you're getting that in the body. Not without advanced signal processing and signal transduction. I agree. Been doing it just fine since 1995, radio frequency people, HOW. Intra-body network doesn't take the same gigahertz or megahertz connectivity as the personal area network. Yeah, that's right. It requires a wireless sensor network handshake with biosignals that are running at the appropriate frequency for the human body on something called intra-body communication. Yeah. Did you leave that out like normal? Okay. We got a bigger problem. So one of the biggest things that they have been out there telling people is that they'll use the 5G towers to send a signal to your body. And those of you that lie about electronic warfare, LIDAR, geofences, I don't know why you're doing that, but this is important for you to know as well. What is this? This is the Synergy Tech Metric PDF. What is W-band mitigation? What is this? What is this? Human body routing. Because your body is a node on the network. Now, with 6G mesh networking, the Department of Transportation, the wireless body area network, since 2014, is sitting right here on a frequency of megahertz. Okay? This is the industrial, scientific, and medical bands. You'll see human body communication is way over here. That's skin conductance. To get connected to it, got to hit that pan in the band. Now, once you do hit the band, or the ultra-wide band, then you can log in. Great. So I wish to point out, see the medical implant communication system down here at 402, 405, wireless medical telemetry. These have been around for cardiac pacemakers since 1999. Here's your industrial, scientific, and medical bands, and that's your medical body area network and standard ISM. Now we got a problem. So, new sign. Tried to get you guys to talk about the terahertz. Showed a cartoon. Your radio frequency engineers kept lying about microwave. I said, yo, we have a bridge to the optical. That's visible light communication, infrared, ultraviolet, and X-ray. That bridge to the optical, that's super high 2.4 gigahertz, down to the regular 50 megahertz or whatever you need to get into the intra-body communication, galvanic coupling, signals of oscillation of normal body biological cellular signal, signal transduction, advanced signal processing, HOW. But it's all microwave. No, but if I want to make a laser out of thin air, I got some microwave plasma technology for you that operates at 2.45 gigahertz on the industrial, scientific, and medical bands. That ain't a maybe. That's another DTIC document and all sorts of data for the following. Surface treatment. Well, there's your intelligent reflective surfaces. Chemical synthesis for changing out or actuating a signal.
So let's remember those metamaterials. Now we're going to talk about what they've been saturating in the air and spraying all over with the glyphosate and the nitrates and the chemtrails and everything else. And now we've got nanochemical synthesis through the metamaterials everywhere. And I'm going to talk about what happened here in a minute to a bunch of us here in the valley, because we are now got the ground discharging. The electrical currents are coming up into you and discharging through different people. We're basically getting electrocuted from the ground. So people are going, hey, you can't put like a, lightning going across or across the water of the ground. And I'm like, is your head up your ass? Because this is exactly what she's talking about right here. These are exactly what she's talking about. And the Department of Energy and this warfare has been going on. And that's why you've got a 2.4 and 2.45 that can trigger off every one of these things and detonate them for you.
That's your Department of Energy and BARDA and your metamaterials and your Riemann resurfacing. But where is the spectrum from the Federal Communications Commission for setting the plasma in the atmosphere on fire? 2.45 gigahertz. Why does that matter? Well, see, there's a system here called spectrum allocation. In computer networking, what you do is if I have a network here with the mix and here with the wireless medical telemetry system, these networks are both deployed in the 90s.
So I'm going to let you do that at your own leisure. This is a game changer. I'm putting it into the actual chat here. You need to know this. You absolutely need to know this. Okay. So like I said, now I'm going to tell you why I did it and what order I did it today. So she's going to talk about that and the fires. And what I'm probably going to do is take this and move it over to Rumble. I always do a Rumble. So if you're not on my Rumble channel, you can subscribe to that, because I just think we said a few things to do with the injections that will probably get me knocked out again. And I'm already on like one strike. So one of the things in here, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that I came apart here. And when I started talking about some of these things, what was going on to people, and I sent this out to quite a few friends, and especially here locally. Okay. And the reason why is because a lot of people just do not realize the intensity of what is going on here. Okay. So we talked about that 2.4. And I'm talking about a lot of people too with these parasites and stuff like that. Toxoplasmosis, you're seeing people go more zombified, and you're seeing people getting almost like trans, or you're getting a more polarity to the same sex. Anyway, that was one of them. But one of the things in here, I'm just going to show you this, because I think it's really, really important that you guys get what we were trying to say. And now I want you to think about what Sabrina just talked about with the 2.4 and 2.45 gigahertz here, because damned important, really damned important here, you guys, because not too many people, and I've sent it out to the people that I think need to know, because there are little bits. We all have little bits and pieces of this. No one's got the whole entire thing. None of us do. I've come to that conclusion. We all need to work together. Okay. And one of the things, this is why I want you to see what we came up with here. Okay. I'm 1 degree separated. Now I'm not even separated from the individual that wrote this article. So I'm going to paraphrase here. It's under a Substack. It was written close to a year ago. Okay. And it says, what I heard in Kenya. Okay. So we're going to skip through this. This is someone that lived in, we'll say, the forest out here, right? They moved over here from Iran, which we know what's going over there now, as they're going for their bases underneath here. And basically, because he had spent years doing technology and computers, that was his background. That's what he trained in the Middle East, right? And he loved it here. And then he went for a holiday. After he went for the holiday, we'll just skip to that. He just says, I just love these forests. They're vast. They're mysterious. A lot of stuff they noticed. Large rivers are now polluted. Now with the immigrants, don't even get me started with a lot of this stuff going in with some of them. Okay. But what they talked about, inspiration, types of mushrooms. Okay. Should we skip down some more? Then he heard about a huge fire in one of the forests. So then he went in. He used to work for electronics, Internet of Things engineer for SEPA. SEPA was connected to these agents, and they were hiding devices in the forests. that were cylindrical, and they had a design with camo design. Under the lid was a circuit board to read everything by, as Sabrina talked about, monitoring sensors. They were connected to other devices using the mesh network that she talked about. And then what they did, they could simply send the signal in, just like a spark, similar to an electrical lighter, embedded, and can start them. And they've been spreading these devices all over and over and over for years. Now they're detonating. As we went through here, they were given some of these devices to try and reverse engineer. And you know what they said? We could not reverse engineer this. We couldn't stop it. So as he goes on in here, he talks about how they plan to distribute these in the forest and detonate them in the summer of July 2026 and into August 26, that it will be premium optimal conditions to activate and do these widespread and uncontrollable forests all across it. You got it? So anyway, so in here, not only they are susceptible and they're burning because, yes, they were doing this stuff when we got CMEs and we got everything else here. Okay, so they don't need to do it. They can start burning entire cities and smart grid cities right down to the ground. Not just a town like Summerlin to 20,000, not just like Fort McMurray, not like Maui, where we're still the 200 children. We got children that have been in these areas, you know, that they've never found. We've got busloads and school busloads of children disappeared. Okay? Not just 8 million children going missing a year. Anyway, so as this comes up, what they're saying is this was designed to basically put Canada down, or we'll just say whatever, the territories down here. I don't recognize Canada anyway, but the territories down here of all the peoples and tribal peoples up here, that the government will cease to operate probably within 3 months. And then what will happen, it'll allow the USSF, otherwise you guys think is the American forces, to enter into Canada with this excuse. Okay? And what are you going to do? Okay? So this is all the stuff in all this translation. And by the way, as you see, I go down, go down, go down, go down, go down. I made a comment. I made several comments. Okay? Mine was, I've been aware of this since 2016. I saw the pillars actually come in different cases. I did evacuation of some of these victims since Hope, Kelowna, Scotch Creek, the Kootenays, Atakakut, Northern Saskatchewan after Fort Mac. Okay? And again, Nelson to Kamloops to Clinton is all connected. All through these data centers, Smart G, 5678G, quantum dumps, and military labs with military MIC nano levels. And you know what? Most people can't even cope. They have no scope of even what's going on, so they could cope. So I'm grateful to have the information. The other thing in here is we talked about iodine water, spring water, aloe vera is another thing. Okay? Make a comment. You never know what happens out here because you know what? It gets more. Now I've given them the 2.4 to 2.45, right? So a lot of these things on here, they're talking about how these can be set off. And that's stuff that you guys need to know. So I'm going to put that in the background here too. Okay? Very, very, very important. You know, and you never know where something is going to make a difference, right? Okay, so there we go. It's my thoughts for the day. I've put it on Facebook. I've put it on my Twitter. I've put it on all these different things on that. And then I'm going to give you Aries different things here. Okay? Really, really, really important. You know, because like I said, if you're not always getting these informations, but it's from Era Mystic, right? And he saw what I did. He liked and thanked and whatever. So that means I know that you know that we know. That's all we need to know. We know. We know? Do you know? So are we getting to the point where we know? And so one of the things in here is that's what people die from, lack of information. For God's sakes, don't let that happen to you. Okay, so one of the things in here, let's get a follow up here. My gosh, it's been an hour and a half. Sabrina's amazing. Yes, she is. Absolutely. For carrying and putting the knowledge out. Okay. I gather that a lot of people do not have necessarily the scientific background or the medical or the nursing background. Just means I can read. Just means I'm either have a really boring life and I read a lot of stuff that you guys are not. I don't know. But what happens is hopefully I can take the scientific and what those things are and bring it to you in a simplified manner with a few PowerPoints. That's why I appreciate what Sabrina does, because she uses PowerPoints. You do the reading. You get the same conclusion I did. Great. That's fine. Okay. But she is amazing, and people care, and they're putting information out. That's why doing crystal bowls, biofeedback, doing the different things we can. I use the biofeedback, and what I do is I put my remedies and my essential oils on my plates, and I make that through the Genius Biofeedback. And if you haven't had a free session with me for 15, 20 minutes, I'll give you a demo. Anyway, so one of the things here, someone asks, okay, so grounding on the grass. That was something I said to someone. I wouldn't want to lie on the grass right now, and I'm going to tell you why. Let me do this before you go back in here. Galactic Medbed. One of the things in here, very important story. You guys haven't heard this. Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a storm. I went out with some friends. 3-4 days before that, they couldn't get out of bed because they had radiation poisoning because they got zapped. I went out. A bunch of us went for lunch. My client that was just about dead was actually out on the golf course. I'm going to her, what are you doing here? I thought, we're dying. And she goes, I recouped after you did some stuff. Right? So she was out golfing. So we're all sitting there on the 19th hole, like sitting there talking and having lunch. And you know what happened? We had a storm. You know what happened? It came up from the ground. It didn't come down lightning, so it can come here through the water. The whole ground is electrified right now. Okay, think of that magnet and that mantle I showed you. It's electric. It's Electric Avenue. Do, 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 do. Anyway, so one of the things in here is that it came up through the ground on that storm, even though it was up there. The whole thing was so plasma electrified. It went through me, went through my hip, and it went through my arm, and it went through several of us. Not everyone is feeling it because they can't feel stuff. But the actual electrification, we got surged and purged. Okay? So one of the things in there, that's why there are different things I have here, like grounding sheets you can buy. I'm actually sitting on one right now. These, you can get bed sheets. I have bed sheets. I also have grounding sheets. They connect, and this plugs into it only has one outlet. It goes into the bottom, into the ground. So there are things you can do. You keep alkaline, because you can only get, the more alkaline you are, the better it is. Get your paper, get it up at 8. You know, a lot of people are getting biofilm. So there's biofilm here. So there's like, you know, black seed oil. I've got my oregano, thyme, myrrh, whatever in here too. Very, very important. I don't want to be on the grass with bare feet right now, because right now, I'll tell you, we had storms for 3 weeks. I've had all the smoke from all the burns come here. It was sitting here. And now what did they do? They just let it rain to cool it down. And now it's sitting on the ground. The last thing I would want to be is on the ground with bare feet right now. It's in all the food. It's going to be in your water. And that's why it's going to be very, very important to go in and do greenhouses and have them covered, or having a raised bed, but with a cover. For God's sakes, quit eating things out of the ground already. You know, those are things, container gardens, that kind of thing. So if that makes sense to you, that's the where and Walhall of it. The other thing too right now is that Tony Pantalleresco is on. So now that I'm finished, and you might be bored of me, I'm going to turn you over if you want to, because tonight, every other night, is Tony Pantalleresco's evening. And he is on something called Stout. So if you want to listen to his Stout, you're more than welcome to do that. And the links will be in his Substack, which I'm going to put in here right now, because I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to go talk to him. So if Mark and a bunch of people, and you guys haven't been in Tony Pantalleresco's, right? One of the things he told me, which I did do the other day, I grabbed his triangle. He says, go get my triangle, Karen. And I've got anti-spike here, but we actually went, I got a little container and I put that with all the salt water and borks and tons of minerals, put it with warm water, and I did basically the triangle like a EMF. These are designed specifically by him so that you can put them in the water and basically try and fry and zap the nanotech if you're not injected. Okay, so those are some of the, I think, really important things. As I said, I'm happy to report to here. If you want the triangle or anything, let me know. I'm doing a 30-day reset. I'm on my, there's got cleanse days and I've got shake days, and I'm happy to report something too. I'm down probably 11 or 12 pounds in 2.5, 3 weeks. Okay. So one of the things in here, I get to cleanse and I get to eat, and I get to cleanse and I get to eat, which is great. So a lot of people are needing that. And what it is, it's not about doing anything weird. The different products that I got back in here from Troy Stewart through Isogenics, or if you need a link, let me know, is that basically their 30-day package was like 40% off. I'm like, I'm coming back on it. And the reason why is that the minerals were invented by Dr. John Anderson. If you don't know him, he was one of the top alchemists in the world. They used to just call him the mineral man because he reversed people, including himself, off just venom bites, brown recluse spider, by just doing that. So I went back on doing some shakes, back on doing my cleanse days. And you know what? When you give the right gas to what you need, we move forward. And so it doesn't matter if it's weight, whatever it is, give the right thing, and then you're going to start repairing what's weak. So I wanted to leave that with you. Hopefully there's some things. If you have questions, I'll put my email in the bottom again, ClownMother13. Pass this out if you think it's been helpful. I talked about doing yoni steams and vaginal steams. The other thing too is to get a big pot. You can either boil it up like 4 or 5 cups, get lots of teas and herbs and everything else. Let's make a really good potent potion, brew, whatever you want to call it, big tea fest, right? Essential oils, salts, whatever you want, and then stand over it and vape it this way. Okay, that'll be the most helpful because you can also put it with a hot plate underneath like a bee steam. So we'll leave that for today. If you have any questions or requests for next week, let me know. But I put that one in, so have a listen to what Stuart Swedlow has to say. Listen to Sabrina, read that article, and let's hear from you next week. And again, give me a call if you're questioning what it is. What herb do you need? What mineral do you need? Remember, we can do that. Just like hair analysis, voice analysis, and blood analysis, almost like identical. So that's why I went into doing the voice, because I can do all the testing anywhere in the world. Okay? So you guys have a great weekend, right? Enjoy the day.